We will now, if the colleagues could prepare themselves quickly and not be having standing conversations in the chamber, we move on to the urgent question, the government response to the political situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I call the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for FCDO Affairs if he'll make a statement on the government's response to the political situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Minister Siddhanta.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Right Honourable Lady for her question on this very, very important issue to the Government, and I know to many members across the whole House. We strongly condemn secessionist moves by Republika Srpska President Milorad Dodik, which seriously threaten the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Such actions are unconstitutional and dangerous, including to those living in Republika Srpska, who he claims to protect. And the UK remains fully committed to the Dayton Peace Agreement as one of the signatories, which respects the protection of the authorities of both entities and supports Bosnia as a sovereign and politically independent state. And on Wednesday, 26th of February, the Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina found Republika Srpska President Dodik guilty in the first instance of ruling of refusing to implement decisions of the High Representative. And the UK is clear that the High Representative's jurisdiction is indisputable and that disregarding the independent decisions of the Bosnia and Herzegovina judiciary undermines the rule of law. And in response to the verdict, the Republika Srpska National Assembly adopted a number of unconstitutional laws and proposed a new constitution in clear violation of the Dayton Peace Agreement. These moves represent a significant escalation in his successionist path and threaten the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state. And as he accelerates those attacks on the state, he increases the threat to international peace and security. Bosnia and Herzegovina, of course, has the institutions and mechanisms to respond to this crisis, and we support all efforts by domestic actors to de-escalate the situation and take appropriate action. Last week, I convened a call with my French counterpart, with other Quint partners, the United States, Germany and Italy, plus European Union institutions, where we discussed our joint efforts to bolster security and stability. I spoke also last week with the High Representative, and in the last few weeks spoke with the Bosnian Foreign Minister, Elmedin Konakovic, reaffirming the UK government's full support for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the UK Special Envoy for the Western Balkans, Dame Karen Pierce, reiterated that message during her visit to Bosnia and Herzegovina on the 27th and 28th of March at our direction. And we welcome EU peacekeeping mission EUFOR Operation Althea's decision to activate their reserve forces to provide reassurance to communities most affected by rising tensions. In conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, Dodik's actions do not serve the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, including those residing in Republika Srpska. The people of Bosnia and Herzegovina need their political leaders to focus on passing reforms and building an inclusive future rather than exacerbating tensions and amplifying secessionist rhetoric.
Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his remarks. Attempts to undermine Bosnia and Herzegovina's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and by extension the Dayton Peace Agreements, are deeply troubling. Over many years, the UK has been a reliable supporter of Bosnia and Herzegovina's democratic, pluralistic journey and a trusted promoter when it comes to the security of the Western Balkans. We were proud in government to have appointed Lord Peach as the Special Envoy to the Western Balkans, whose work was incredibly solid and robust. And we welcome that the government has maintained that position alongside the appointment of Dame Karen Pierce, and we look forward to engaging with her too. I know the Minister, as he has said, has spoken with the Foreign Minister Koznovic, but in practical terms, what is the UK doing both to support Bosnia and Herzegovina to stay on the course and maintain stability, and to defend and promote freedom and democracy in the region? For the same reasons that the Minister has already outlined, this is pivotal to the security and integrity of that region. How does he envisage the situation could be de-escalated? Can he update the House on the government's position with regards to strengthening ties between NATO and Bosnia and Herzegovina? What is his position in relationship to EUFOR and EUFOR's response in recent days? What direct discussions has the Minister or the Foreign Secretary had with leaders from across the Western Balkans, including on those very concerning actions of the leadership of Republika Srpska? And with specific to regard the protests in Serbia, what assessment has he made of the impact of regional stability and security? What assessment has he made of any Russian involvement in response to the protests there? Finally, can he share what plans he has to work with Kosovo to shore up and build upon their sovereignty and independence? And Madam Deputy Speaker, the Western Balkans matters to the United Kingdom for so many reasons, now more than ever. And with the war in Ukraine, we must be an active player in promoting and supporting stability in the region.
Minister.
Well, I thank the Shadow Foreign Secretary for her points, and I'm glad she raised Lord Peach, because that allows me to put on record again my tribute to him for all of his excellent work as the High Representative. It was a genuine pleasure to work alongside him, and I'm also delighted now that we have Dame Karen Pierce, one of our most experienced diplomats in the role, and she is already playing a crucial role across the region. And as I said, one of her very first visits to Bosnia because of the very issues that the Shadow Foreign Secretary has outlined. She asked what we're doing. Well, I've been very, very clear about the diplomatic efforts that we're taking across the region and working with partners and allies, including the United States, including the European Union, including members of the Quint. We're continuing to work with partners on that. We continue to engage with regional partners. They're absolutely crucial to that stability. The Foreign Secretary met the Croatian Foreign Minister Radman on the 24th of March, and I spoke to the Serbian Foreign Minister Marko Đurić on the 27th of March. And this is part of a regular series of engagements that we've been having, including through the Berlin process, and she will be pleased to know that we will now be hosting the Berlin process, and the preparations for that summit also being led by Dame Karen Pierce. So I can assure her that I've had myself and indeed the Foreign Secretary extensive engagements with regional partners. I was out in Serbia and Montenegro myself just a few weeks ago, and intend to visit the region again soon. She also asked about the important role of NATO alongside EUFOR. I referred to EUFOR already, but of course we continue to support Bosnia and Herzegovina's aspirations for Euro-Atlantic integration, including NATO membership, and through joint training of UK and Bosnia and Herzegovina armed forces, our support for reforms. We're helping them strengthen capabilities and enable alignment with NATO standards, and we're working in investing and strengthening capabilities of the Bosnian and Herzegovinian armed forces for peacekeeping operations, for countries that of course export security are also more secure themselves, and we maintain officers in the NATO HQ in Sarajevo.
Select Committee Chair Dame Emily Thornberry.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. What we've seen from Russia in Georgia, in Moldova, in Romania, in the Baltic states, and now playing out in the Western Balkans is nothing less than hybrid warfare. Whilst democracies are working hard together to stand strong and support Ukraine, does the Minister agree we need to put more effort into working with our allies in support of Eastern Europe and the Western Balkans, who are very much on the front line?
Minister.
Well, the Honourable Lady, the Chair of the Select Committee, rightly raises Russia's malign actions, not only, of course, in relation to their illegal and barbarous war in Ukraine, but, of course, across the whole of Europe and indeed globally. And we continue to see a pattern of behaviour intended to hamper Euro-Atlantic aspirations and exploit instability and division, and indeed recent attempts by Russia, Madam Deputy Speaker, to divide the international community at the United Nations Security Council and in the OSCE have only further demonstrated the resoluteness of partners to work together to protect the territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And her work in the committee on these issues is crucially important, and we're also closely working with our allies and also with the European Union on these matters, and not just in relation to the Balkans but also in relation to locations like Moldova.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson James MacCleary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My former party leader, the late Lord Ashdown, regularly expressed his grave concerns about the fragility of the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, drawing on his own experience as the country's former High Representative. Despite repeated warnings, the UK has ignored the threat posed to peace in Bosnia by Milorad Dodik, his entourage and supporters in the Kremlin. Dodik's latest defiance of international authority, rejecting the legal orders of the International Peace Envoy, is only the latest act in his concerted work to undermine the Dayton Agreement and regional stability in the Balkans. It is clear that the UK has taken its eye off the ball in Bosnia. The Conservatives' short-sighted decision in 2020 to withdraw our troops from the EUFOR Althea peacekeeping operation sent entirely the wrong signal about our commitment to the region. Does the Minister agree with me that the UK should recommit to the EUFOR mission so that we can work in lockstep with our international partners to prevent further deterioration of the situation in the Balkans?
Minister.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, you'll understand I can't comment on the previous government, but I know there's a strong support across the House for peace and stability across the Balkans, and that we're all engaged in that effort. But I can assure you that we absolutely have not taken our eye off the ball when it comes to this. This is one of the regions that is the most important to the Foreign Secretary and myself, not least because of our long history and engagement in the region. It's why we've now put in place one of our most senior diplomats to act as the special envoy. It's why we've been engaged in the diplomatic conversations that I mentioned. And when it comes to the role of the High Representative, we are clear that the political crisis was caused by Republika Srpska President Dodik and his supporters, and we support the High Representative's role, and we support the use of his powers if necessary, and his role remains vital for Bosnia and Herzegovina's future prosperity and stability, and we continue to work alongside EUFOR and indeed with the NATO presence that we have there too.
Alex Sobel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We all know that Dodik has continually denied that a genocide occurred at Srebrenica. I was absolutely appalled to see that after his conviction, he was invited by the Israeli anti-Semitism minister to go to Jerusalem to address an anti-Semitism conference. I hope that the minister can restate the UK's strong belief that a genocide occurred at Srebrenica and that other countries should not be inviting Dodik to address conferences, particularly on the subject of genocide.
Minister.
Well, I obviously can't comment on Mr Dodik's travel, but what I can say is that we were absolutely clear about what happened at Srebrenica. He will know that I've visited Srebrenica myself, and we've done important work with remembering Srebrenica. And again, I think there's again a cross-party attitude to this issue across the House. And we're in a year of very, very important and solemn anniversaries, and it is crucial that leaders refrain from inflammatory rhetoric and actions and instead focus on building trust between communities across the Western Balkans, but particularly in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Mark Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. President Dodik's language and actions are both reckless and dangerous. Can I ask, given the Minister has just admitted to Russian meddling in the region, as we know has been going on for many years, can I ask what conversations he had with the Americans to ensure that they continue to have command of the NATO headquarters in Sarajevo? And to the Liberal Democrat frontbencher's point, could the UK play a little bit more in EUFOR? And in his discussions with the French minister, is there likely to be an extension of that mandate?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I said, I met with one of the American representatives just on Friday with other Quint members, and there is unity across the Quint on these issues, and we continue to work closely with the United States and indeed other partners on this. On the question of EUFOR, we obviously see EUFOR as vital for maintaining peace and security in Bosnia and Herzegovina and upholding the military aspects of the Dayton peace agreement, and we regularly engage with both EUFOR directly and the EU delegation. We don't currently participate, as he knows, in EU common security and defence policy missions. Of course, we're open to future opportunities for cooperation, and we've identified the Western Balkans and indeed hybrid activities as one of the areas where we do need to see closer cooperation, and that was discussed with the Foreign Secretary and the EU at the Foreign Affairs Council in Luxembourg a few months ago.
Luke Akehurst.
Madam Deputy Speaker, does the Minister agree with me that we need leaders in the West Balkans region who are focused on building a stable and inclusive future for all the peoples in the region, not escalating tensions with reckless rhetoric?
I couldn't agree with him more. I sincerely hope that all, including leaders in Republika Srpska, will focus on delivering the reforms and the necessary progress for their citizens and not engaging in that kind of inflammatory rhetoric and divisive language which only seeks to break down communities and unity rather than building up trust between communities, which is so needed.
Sir Alex Shalbrook.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In the 1960s, Germany took a very important step of showing programmes about what happened in the Second World War with the Holocaust. But the exact opposite has been happening in Republika Srpska and areas of Bosnia-Herzegovina, where the textbooks are being rewritten to actually increase that hatred. So may I ask the Minister what plans the government have and what interventions they can make to try and get the truth of what happened during that war out to people so that those countries are not just generating another generation of hatred?
Well, I completely agree with the broad thrust of his comments, and making sure that we understand what happened in the past and don't attempt to deny what happened is obviously crucial for all communities, and building trust between communities is crucial. He'll understand that we've funded, indeed the previous government funded, a number of programmes relating to include those who suffered sexual violence in the conflicts in the 1990s. Also, we did extensive support to the International Commission on Missing Persons, which has helped account for over 70% of the 40,000 missing people from the conflicts in the 1990s. And of course, those sort of actions are crucial to rebuilding trust and dealing with the legacies of the past.
Deputy Speaker, I volunteered with the OSCE to ensure free and fair elections in Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1996 following the Dayton Peace Agreement. I therefore have huge concerns at the escalating tensions. I welcome the diplomatic efforts that the Minister has updated us on that we are undertaking to support stability, but can he confirm that he is working closely with European civil society partners such as the OSCE to secure peace and stable democracy in the region?
Well, of course, we continue to work with all organisations that seek to promote peace and stability in the region, and she rightly mentions the OSCE crucially important, and I know this is an issue of keen interest to members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly as well in this place. We'll continue to work with them, with the Council of Europe and with others, our partners in the EU, our partners in the US and beyond, and of course civil society organisations are crucial to that, and as I said, many of the examples of work that we've done in the past on building trust between communities and peace building have been through civil society organisations.
Dale?
Is the Minister aware of reports that Russia Today and Sputnik are increasing their dissemination of disinformation in Bosnia and Herzegovina at the same time when the widely respected Bosnian service of the Voice of America faces closure? Will he look to see what more we can do to counter Russian disinformation in the region, perhaps by increasing broadcasting by the BBC World Service?
Well, he is absolutely right to highlight the hybrid destabilising activities of Russia, not just in Bosnia, but across the whole region. And he knows the steps that have been taken in this country against RT and other Russian outlets. And indeed, we call them out across Europe and work together with partners on that. He's absolutely right that free and fair and truthful and legitimate media is needed to be able to ensure that citizens have the truth about what is happening in situations and not the kind of lies that are peddled from the Kremlin. I can't make specific promises, but he knows that we treat the BBC World Service very, very seriously, and my honourable friend the Minister is here with me and we'll have heard his comments closely.
James Nash.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As has already been noted, the actions of Milorad Dodik over the past few weeks and months have seriously undermined the stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina and undermined the Dayton Peace Agreement that ended the country's 1992-95 war in the aftermath of that horrific genocide that took place there in Srebrenica. Can I ask the Minister what steps is the government taking to work with other partners such as the US, the EU and other Western Balkan countries to ensure that the territorial integrity of Bosnia is upheld during this fragile period?
Well, he's absolutely right to highlight the need to work with other partners, and that's very much why myself and my French counterpart, Minister Haddad, convened Quint partners and the EU institutions on Friday for a joint meeting. Minister Haddad was visiting here in London, and we took the initiative to meet with our partners because we were deeply concerned about the situation in Bosnia. And we've also, as I said, been engaging with those in the region, including with Serbia, with Croatia and others. And myself, the Special Representative, the Foreign Secretary and others will continue to do so.
Mike Martin.
Yes. Deputy Speaker, one obviously detects the hand of Russia here, much like it does in the entire periphery of Europe. So whether it's the High North, Ukraine, the Balkans, Chair of the Select Committee there mentioned the Caucasus, Sahel, the Maghreb, Libya, right over to the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap. Could the Minister describe the British strategy for rolling back Russian destabilisation in the entire periphery of Europe?
In 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think to do that in a few seconds would be a challenge, Deputy Speaker. But I can assure him that in all of those regions, we are not only conscious of what Russia is doing, we are actively working with partners to push back, and that's why it's been identified as an area for close cooperation with the EU. It's why we work closely with the United States and others, and it's why we work closely with a number of individual partners in very specific contexts, including, for example, in Moldova in response to the Russian attempts there. But the Balkans, Moldova, Caucasus and elsewhere, all areas where we see Russia spreading misinformation, lies and worse.
Mark Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Doddick's reckless rhetoric has been noted many times already in the House this afternoon. But can the Minister assure me that work is being done with partners in the region to ensure that there's no contagion here? I'm particularly thinking, of course, of Kosovo.
Well, my honourable friend rightly raises Kosovo, a country that I've visited on a number of occasions, and one which we continue to support, and we continue to support the important dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina as well, and to work with the EU and other counterparts on that crucial issue. We, of course, play a crucial role in KFOR, in Kosovo, in promoting peace and stability, and I think it is important, as he says, to understand the wider regional implications here and to continue to work with all partners to promote peace and stability, whether it's in Bosnia and Herzegovina, whether it's in Kosovo, or whether it's in responding to that Russian hybrid activity.
Lewes.
Given the recent love-in between Washington and Moscow, it's hardly surprising, is it, that the killer in the Kremlin is encouraging all his sidekicks to stir up trouble in areas such as Bosnia-Herzegovina. Is the government aware and keeping a very close scrutiny of other potential areas where allies of Mr. Putin can be expected to start to stir up and destabilise things as part of the move now that he's on the front foot in Ukraine?
Well, I wouldn't agree entirely with his characterisation, and I think you only have to look at what President Trump has said in the last 24 hours on these matters to see that we're united in trying to not only find peace and a sustainable peace in Ukraine, but also to call out Russia on its actions and to take the necessary actions. When it comes to Russia's activities elsewhere, as I said, there's very strong unity on this issue. It was a real pleasure to be alongside American and European counterparts with a strong and united approach on this issue, and that's absolutely crucial. There needs to be strong transatlantic unity on these issues, and we will continue to work for that with European and American partners.
Fred Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Sarajevo Security Conference is in a couple of months, and they're doing a session on defence technology. I've been asked along to speak about it. The NATO countries in Europe are rearming, spending increased defence budgets, developing and investing in defence technology. So what steps is the Minister taking to make sure that our friends in Bosnia and Herzegovina are also updating their capabilities, and what message can I take to that conference?
Well, I'm very glad to hear he's been invited to that conference. It's important we have these links at parliamentary levels with countries in the Western Balkans, particularly on these important matters. And I mentioned earlier that we're working, including through our presence at the NATO HQ in Sarajevo, on investing in and strengthening the capabilities of Bosnia and Herzegovina's armed forces for how those might be deployed internationally as well. And that's very, very important. And we're going to continue to work with European partners, both in and outside of NATO, to make sure that we can all collectively contribute to European defence, particularly in response to some of these hybrid activities that we see and new advances in warfare, whether that's in cyber technology or drone technology.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I draw members' attention to my register of interests. Last November I visited the Srebrenica Memorial Centre, and I'm sure the Minister will share my revulsion at the fact that the centre had to close its doors for a short period just a few weeks ago in respect to the political situation there. But before he does so, can I ask him to perhaps elaborate upon the position that the United States of America has adopted in respect of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and whether he views it as a stable ally that recognises that the Western Balkans are crucial to the security of Europe as a whole?
Well, of course, we in the United States played a crucial role in the Western Balkans, and particularly, of course, in achieving the Dayton Peace Agreement itself. And, we are all continue to be committed to that. And there's been strong unity, as I said, amongst the Quint, and it's important that the United States and Europe work together on these issues, particularly when, a legacy of 30 years of relative stability, and I say that relative because, of course, there have been deep threats to that at different points. But we need that to continue for the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I'm sure we're all committed to that.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And further to my right honourable friend, the member for Malden's question, and knowing how much the Minister values soft power, can he reassure the House that there will be no further cuts to the British Council or to the World Service in the Balkans on his watch?
I will come back to her specifically on the point she makes around British Council and in relation to the World Service funding, but I did mention our wider development spending in the region, and whilst we're having to make very, very difficult decisions at the moment, it's worth reflecting the fact we have, through around 50 million this year, through the Integrated Security Fund and through FCDO ODA, continue to empower women and girls, strengthen democracy, build resilience to domestic and state threats, and promote peace building and transitional justice. So we've been engaged across a range of different areas in the development and soft power space to contribute to peace and stability in the Western Balkans and in Bosnia and Herzegovina specifically.
Al Pinkerton.
Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I associate myself with the comments that have been made about the British Council and the BBC World Service? A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of visiting 77 Brigade, the Russian anti-disinformation brigade based out at Newbury. I wonder, could the Minister tell us, has an assessment been made about the rise of Russian mis and disinformation in this particular theatre in the Republika Srpska over recent months? Because what we heard during that meeting was that Russia are increasingly using mis and disinformation across Ukraine, across Eastern Europe, and indeed into the Balkans. Thank you.
Well, we're very clear that Russia continues to spread lies and disinformation and misinformation, not only in the Western Balkans, but in many other locations across Europe. And we continue to work with allies and partners to challenge that. And we continue to work, as I said, with the EU and with others. But there is a particular challenge in the Western Balkans, and that's why we also support efforts to strengthen free media and journalism and civil society organisations there too.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In my previous role as trade envoy to the Western Balkans, I've visited Bosnia-Herzegovina on a number of occasions, and what was very evident is that though the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well, business leaders are frustrated by the deadlocked structures that they have to work in. Our embassy are doing what they can, but is the government able to take any further initiatives that could increase the economic activity and indeed the trade between our two nations?
Well, he raises very important points, and can I pay tribute to his work? He and I travelled together on a number of visits to the region, including to Bosnia, actually, and also in Kosovo, and so I'm well aware of his interest in an engagement there. And I think there are many opportunities for increased economic linkage and trade with all the countries in the region, and we'll continue to promote those. Indeed, I discussed them on my recent visits to Serbia and Montenegro. But I think he's absolutely right. This is fundamentally also about leadership in the region, and as I said, the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina need political leaders to focus on passing reforms, building inclusive futures, rather than exacerbating tensions, as we're seeing with President Dodik in Republika Srpska, because that doesn't serve the people of Republika Srpska.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister's acknowledged the secessionist moves in Republika Srpska could have ramifications for the Western Balkans more broadly, and one part of that is the north of Kosovo, where there is a Kosovo Serb minority. While the UK does not contribute to EUFOR and Althea, it does contribute to KFOR in Kosovo. What contingency plans exist for British troops to reinforce KFOR through a strategic reserve, as in the way that happened in 2023?
Madam Deputy, I'm sure the Honourable Member will understand that I'm not going to get into operational details, but he can ensure we prepare for all scenarios across the region, and it's indeed why we've welcomed the steps that EUFOR have taken in relation to Bosnia and Herzegovina. But he's absolutely right to highlight the role that we play in KFOR. Indeed, I visited KFOR with the Honourable Gentleman as well on my visit, and saw the important work that they do in line with their mandate. And it's important that everybody takes steps to reduce tensions, to de-escalate tensions, to deal with issues that haven't been dealt with. I previously raised the Banska incident on a number of times, including with Serbia. It's important that those responsible are held accountable.
Final question, Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for his answers, and he understands the issue incredibly well. The Minister will be aware of recent judgments made regarding human rights, and in particular those involving discrimination against the Jewish community. Will the Minister outline whether the deputation's trip included discussions regarding faith and freedom, and to practice that faith, and what the outcomes are envisaged to be to secure the right to hold and live your faith, no matter what your faith is, in Bosnia-Herzegovina? Hope I've got that right in that pronunciation. Probably haven't, but there you are.
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for this very important question? And indeed, you'll be pleased to know that interfaith engagement was part of the recent visit of the Special Envoy. I can write to him a little bit more about that. But of course, this is a country that has a strong tradition from a number of different faiths. And of course, we're celebrating Eid and the end of the holy month of Ramadan at the moment. But of course, alongside the Muslim communities, Christian communities, Jewish communities, a long heritage in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I've witnessed that with my own eyes. And we remain a staunch defender of freedom of religion or belief. We'll continue to work with organisations that promote that inclusive and diverse society where everybody is respected and not discriminated against on the basis of their religion or belief.
That is the end of the urgent question.